My beggars list for Sun Devils basketball is to somehow bring Jayden Quaintance back, and if not, can we bring RJ Lewis Jr. to this team and turn it around?
You are Locked On Sun Devils, your daily podcast on the Arizona State Sun Devils.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Sun Devils podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your guide, Richie Bradshaw, here to give you expert coverage for all things Arizona State Sun Devils, from the gridiron to the hardwood and everything you need to know. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. If you're going to shoot big, then you need to shoot for the moon, but there are some more realistic / maybe this could happen possibilities. I do have some predictions and my best case scenario for this roster. All of that is coming up later in today's show. I do want to make sure that I give a shout out to my everydayers who are here every day, and a thanks to all of you for making us your first listen of the day. So, if you're going to shoot for the moon, dream big, right? That is where we are going to start our conversation. Is if you're going to dream big. That's what my dad always told me growing up. And quite frankly, with the state that Sun Devils basketball has found itself in, I think that that's pretty much all we can do right now is shoot for the moon, hope, pray, manifest, do a rain dance, a summoning circle, whatever you got to do to try and get something to happen. There's 3 items here. That is what I consider my shoot for the moon, whatever I possibly can. We can go ahead and start with RJ Lewis Jr. because I know some of you may not be as in tune with the transfer portal. And it's easy to do that because with college basketball, there's so many players that enter and there's only 5 positions. So you see a lot of guys who will enter the transfer portal as 5 stars. And when you see a 5-star in the transfer portal for football, it's very rare. Like, I don't know what we had this past cycle. The year before, I think Evan Stewart was a 5-star, Nolan Smith, or Walter Nolan was a 5-star, and I think that's about it. So it's much different for college basketball. There's a lot more 5-stars out there. And RJ Lewis is currently the top 5-star that is remaining. He is coming from St. John's, which, funny enough, that's where Joe Sonsanen just transferred to. So, if we could do an exchange program, it'd be pretty cool. He is the 3rd overall guy, and he was the top overall shooting guard that was in the transfer portal. This past season, he played, stat line for you, 31.8 minutes per game. He was shooting 43.9% from the field, 33.6% from deep, 74.7% from the free throw line, and averaging 18.2 points per game. Now, he is a bigger guard that ASU is not really used to having. Like, you look at the guards that ASU has had, and they pretty much kind of fit that, like, 6'5" or under, and definitely not the biggest guys, like your classic-looking guards. And you don't have those guys that look like the combo guard, forward, crossover guys. Like Amir Ali was that guy, and he's in the transfer portal. So, nothing you can do about that. But RJ Lewis is very interesting. At 6'7", 215, he is on the bigger side for the guards, at least that ASU has seen in recent years. And he is a more than willing rebounder. He was averaging 5 rebounds a game last year. So that kind of brings me back to memories of Frankie Collins, who we'll talk about later on the show, and that'll be a fun conversation. I'm looking forward to that one. But I just need someone that can score me points and someone that is willing to go up and get the ball, because those are 2 things that Arizona State has really struggled with the last several years, is having consistent guys who can box out and get the ball off the glass, and then guys who are consistent on a game-to-game basis when it comes to scoring points. So I'm not asking for RJ Lewis Jr. to come to this program and give me 18 points a game and 5 rebounds a game, but if I can get any kind of that consistency, that would be huge. And knowing that he would commit to this program, there's a really, really big chance that he's probably the best player on this roster. When you consider that there's literally one returning player from last year on this roster with Trevor Best, and I'm very happy Trevor Best is back, but it's not the hardest thing in the world to be the best player on this team, but RJ Lewis Jr. is getting a lot of traction right now, and he's coming off of a massive year. I don't think ASU has a chance to get him, which is why he is my shoot for the moon. Staying on the shoot for the moon, can we somehow get Jayden Quaintance out of the portal? I don't think it's impossible, but I would give it a very, very small percentage. I think that you're doing everything that you can to entice him to return. Because now that Stanton is gone, now that Ali is gone, now that Sean Phillips is gone, all the seniors that were on the team, there is this wide open opportunity for someone to just bank in on NIL. And I already previously said that, Jayden Quaintance should get the mountain share of that. We'll give him more than that. Just 95% of whatever the NIL is there, throw it at him. Get him to come back that way. It's not impossible for ASU to bring him back. And some of the moves that they've been making, I know that they're for the betterment of the program, but I also look at it and I go, it doesn't seem coincidental that they continue to bring in guys that Jayden played with in high school. So Trevor Best was brought in from Word of God out in Raleigh. And that, at the time, felt 100% like a move to keep Jayden Quaintance here. Now, it turns out he is a good basketball player. And it's not that we ever doubted it. It's just when they signed him, it was like, that feels pretty obvious what you're trying to do. So what do? They bring in another Word of God high school player in Marcus Jackson, who is a forward. He was a 4-star, so a little more highly recruited than what Trevor Best was as a 3-star. And now you have 2 kids on this team who played high school basketball with Jayden Quaintance. So maybe that's something that could entice him, is to come back and play with your buddies from high school. I know that he was very excited about Trevor Best, and Trevor Best gassed him up during the year, and Jayden Quaintance gassed him up throughout the year. They had a good connection. I have no idea if Marcus and Jayden are super good friends, but if they are really buddy-buddy, and I imagine that at least Marcus and Trevor get along well, since they know they're going to be playing with each other next year. I mean, here's a chance to play with 2 of your best friends at a collegiate university, Power 4 basketball. That's a fun opportunity for anybody to have, and it's very rare that you would see something like that. So that's something that you could sell him on, and then maybe you can just find a way to sell him that we're going to have a bounce back season. Like, ASU was dealing with so many injuries last year that it was almost impossible to have any success. Like, I don't like blaming injuries. If you listen to the show, I am not a person who likes using injuries as an excuse for why a team was bad. Injuries happen to everyone. But we also can't sit here and turn a blind eye to what ASU was dealing with last year, because it was intensely critical for the lack of success that ASU had. So maybe you can sell JQ on, look, it's a new roster. It's from top to bottom, it's a new roster. We are not anticipating health problems to be an issue again. You obviously can't predict that, but you would feel pretty good that you're not going to have the catastrophic amount of injuries that you were dealing with this year for a second straight year. It's low chances. So if you can provide any slight hope that could get Jayden to change his mind, because he can exit the transfer portal whenever he would like. There's some stuff here to entice him. 2 of your buddies from high school. There's way more NIL on the table now that he's not going to have to compete with others. And maybe you can just sell him on running it back. And Bobby Hurley is still here, the guy who convinced him to come here in the first place. It's there. And quite frankly, bringing Jayden Quaintance back helps to get the fans regain even a little bit of not so much confidence, but like, I'm willing to get hurt again. I'll watch the team, blah, blah, blah. Like, that's the least amount that you could do, is to put that out in the universe and say, hey, Jayden Quaintance is coming back. We got a couple of 4-stars that are coming in and some good transfers. Maybe we can do better. So, and then for what it's worth, I do want to throw out there that if you can't get Jayden, I would love to get Sean Phillips Jr. back. I said on yesterday's podcast, if you didn't check that out, definitely check that out, especially because the information that I was talking about not so much got outdated, but it's funny to see how quickly things change in a 24-hour span. But I said Sean Phillips Jr. was the biggest loss for this team. If you can bring him back, that'd be huge because you don't have a big man on this roster. And Amir Ali entered the portal earlier on Monday, and if you can find a way to entice him to come back too, that would be huge. Apparently his cousin is on the staff. I did not know that. So a lot of people were like, well, what's the point of having him if you can't keep his cousin around? I hear you. That's certainly an interesting predicament. But there is reason for these guys to come back. Like Sean Phillips, he is your starting center, and he was a starter. It wasn't like he's a sixth man that comes out on the court when you want to get big. Like, he was a starter for this team, which that's been pretty rare over the last handful of years considering the lack of success ASU has had with their big men. Amir Ali, I'd tell you he's almost guaranteed starting time since he is that guard, forward, hybrid kind of player that ASU could really use right now. You could convince either of them to come back with promise of NIL. You could maybe sell Jayden Quaintance to come back with everything there. Or maybe you just do whatever you can to sell RJ Lewis on it. The same thing, the NIL, the fact that you are the star of the program. You are guaranteed 40 minutes of playing time if you want it. Because guys were getting that last year. You can have 40 minutes of playing time. And you can be the player that the fan base gravitates to. That's a lot of shooting for the moon. But don't worry, there are some more realistic possibilities for what ASU can do during this dramatic offseason, and some maybes. That's coming up next. This is the Locked On Sun Devils podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. It's time to talk about our friends over at Game Time. There's nothing like the energy of a live game, whether it's catching a last-minute Major League Baseball showdown or soaking in the excitement of an NBA matchup. But finding great seats at a great price, that used to be a challenge. And then I found Game Time. Game Time makes last-minute ticket buying easier than before. Prices will actually drop as the event gets closer for the emphasis of last minute. And their all-in pricing feature is going to show you the total upfront. There's no surprises at checkout. I've used Game Time several times before for buying tickets for a sports event, but I've also gotten myself tickets for concert events, and you can find it for comedy events, theater events, and pretty much everything that's coming through town. You can get the last minute tickets for that upcoming Suns game, or if you want to go to the Diamondbacks game, you can grab those. It gives you peace of mind because you can see the view of your seats in the app before you buy. There's no surprise seats, and the best part is their lowest price guarantee. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less than what Game Time has, they will give you 110% back. Their lowest price guarantee. That's the best part, man. You can book with total convenience and confidence. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. You guys are the best, as always, for tuning in to Locked On Sun Devils and making us your first listen of the day. Shout out to my everydayers who are here every day. We can shoot for the moon, and what's that saying? Shoot for the moon, and even if you miss, you'll land amongst the stars, or something like that. Yeah, that is what it is. But at least these are more realistic. And it's like, they can happen. I could see these happen. Like, could Jayden Quaintance come out of the transfer portal? Sure. I am not betting on it. But some of these possibilities, like, yeah, it could happen. There's a handful of them. Let's start with the one that has generated the most buzz for Arizona State Sun Devil fans, and that's Frankie Collins. Frankie Collins played 2 seasons at Arizona State, the 22-23 season and the 23-24 season. In that time, he was averaging 30 minutes a game, 11.6 points per game. He was shooting 41.5% from the field, 32% from deep, 4.3 rebounds per game for a guy who's 6'1". He was going up there. He set the steals record for the Sun Devils in the 23-24 season, and he was a 60.2% free throw shooter. You didn't want to put him on the line, but he was competitive, he was productive, and he was someone that you just loved having on the court for yourself. You loved it. And he was a fan favorite. Do you know how rare that is right now for Sun Devils Sun Devils basketball to have a fan favorite? It's a new roster every year. You can't get attached to these players. So Frankie Collins played here for 2 years, and he played very, very well. And then he goes on and does the amazing, the records that he sets for this program. Like, it was special what he did. He's in the transfer portal. He was with TCU last year, but he got injured. He's back in the portal. He's got 1 more year. Let's bring him home. And I think there's a very good chance that that can happen. Here's another thing that I think could be in the cards for ASU. At least I would say this is more of a maybe than anything else. Let's go picking from that one school that's down in Central Phoenix, Grand Canyon. They have a lot of kids that just entered the transfer portal. But there's one that stands out to me. And this guy, he's one of my, like, I wouldn't call him a must-have, but I would be very disappointed if ASU doesn't get him, and I would be over the moon if they did get him. And that's Tyon Grant Foster. He was, and I think this is outdated, because I couldn't find his most recent transfer. So I think this is when he transferred from Kansas to GCU. He was a 3-star transfer. He was outside of the top 300 overall transfers. I am pretty positive that's outdated, but that could be the case. Regardless, 2 seasons at GCU, and he was spectacular. 30.9 minutes per game, 17.8 points per game. Just under 43% from the field, just over 29% from 3, nothing great. 72.2% from the free throw line, and 6 rebounds per game. That's pretty darn good. And for a basketball program that has put together some very quality seasons and has had some pretty darn good players, Tyon was able to make his presence known. Now, in fairness, there was a drastic fall off from this past season compared to what he did the previous year in 23-24. There was a huge drop-off in his production, which I think is one of the reasons why he's not nearly as sought after right now. Like, I don't hear his name very much when people are talking about the transfer portal and guys that are available. But I would love to add Tyon Grant Foster to this team. And keep in mind, he is a bigger guard. I wouldn't call him that kind of guy that like Amir Ali is, as like the guard forward hybrid, but Tyon does have a little more size to him, especially compared to Frankie Collins, who's 6'1". So there is rebounding ability from him, not just from a mindset standpoint, but from a physicality standpoint. And the best play that we have seen from him is good enough to play Power 5 basketball. So I would be all over it. And that would be one of, if not my absolute top guy to add in the transfer portal. That's realistic. Obviously, RJ Lewis Jr. is the guy that you want. It's very unlikely. So if I'm looking for guys that are likely and would get you really excited, I think Tyon Grant Foster is my guy. Frankie Collins isn't far behind. But I said that there's multiple guys from GCU that are in the transfer portal. And they make sense for ASU because they're previously linked to ASU. Hear this. Sammy Yane, If you remember that name, it's because he was a 4-star for last year's class. He decommitted from ASU following the shenanigans that went on when Caleb Love decided to return to U of A. Joson Sannon decommitted and flipped his recruitment to Arizona State in the same day. It caused Sammy Yane to flip his commitment from ASU to GCU. It just was this whole shift through the state of Arizona. And then the top recruit, oh God, I can't remember his name. The top recruit in Arizona was committed to U of A, and then Caleb Love comes back and he flipped his commitment to Oregon. I would have loved to have seen him, but he is staying at Oregon, which is unfortunate. But, good for him. But Sammy Yane in the transfer portal, he didn't get on the court with the Lopes last year. He was offered and accepted and signed a letter of intent with ASU. So the connection is there. If Bobby Hurley is willing to welcome him back with open arms, I'm here for it. Especially because he's a big dude. He's a big forward. He's 6'7", 6'8", like 230, something like that. 6'8", 240 is what I have in my notes. Yep, sign me up. And then Duke Brennan. Duke Brennan, what a fun name. Because in the 22-23 season, he was a bench guy who rotated in with Warren Washington, who was here for 1 year as your big man. And it was fun seeing Duke on the court, but you didn't feel like he was ever going to turn into the superstar. And he goes to Grand Canyon, and it's not that he becomes a superstar, but he does become the contributor that you were hoping he could become at ASU. Well, he's in the portal for his last year. He's already played at ASU. He's a local kid. Stay in town. Just go back to Tempe. You're already familiar anyways. And you'll be able to find a spot. Because there's no, true... Not true, but established. How about that? Established center on this team right now. Purge GCU, in other words. Let's take Tyon Grant Lewis, let's take Sammy Yane, and let's take Duke Brennan, add them to our team. That would be hysterical. Now, I'm going to throw a few more names out there for you guys to pay attention to. These are specifically local kids who at one time were recruited by ASU, with one exception, that are Valley products. So I have 5 names to look out for. And one of them is actually a big name, hey, this would be a really good get. And that is Tru Washington, transferring out of New Mexico. He is a 4-star transfer. He is a 4-star former recruit out of high school. He would also be way up there for me with Tyon and with Frankie. Jason Azamata, transferring from Baylor. He was a 4-star in the 2024 cycle. 2 years ago, in 2023, you had Rayvon Griffith, who is transferring from Cincinnati. And then in 2022, Dylan Anderson from Boise State and Chance Westry from Syracuse. All 5 of those guys are in the portal. All of them except Rayvon Griffith, the one from Cincinnati, held offers from ASU. I would love to bring any, if not all of them in, just out of necessity, but also just activate the Valley. But Tru Washington would be up there for me as one of my top choices. I do have some predictions for what's going to happen, and I'm going to give you my best case scenario for starting roster while doing my best to stay realistic. That's coming up next. This is the Locked On Sun Devils podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. One last time, thanks as always for tuning in to Locked On Sun Devils to make us your first listen of the day, and a shout out to my everydayers who are here every day. I got some predictions for what's going to happen next for ASU basketball. And then I've got my best case roster that's still a little realistic. No, I don't have RJ Lewis, Jayden Quaintance, Tru Washington, and everybody else in the starting lineup. That's just not going to happen. So I'm going to do my best. Let's start with my bold predictions. Not so much bold predictions, but yeah, essentially. Number 1 is ASU is going to pursue guards heavily for the remainder of the transfer portal. So this team right now has 1 guard with Mo Odom. That's not true. Trevor Best is a guard too. There's 2 guards right now with Mo Odom and Trevor Best. Otherwise, this recruiting class is forwards. And it's not that that's a bad thing, especially because there was a point in time where we were complaining that ASU didn't have enough size, and now we're going to complain that ASU doesn't have enough guys to play on the floor. So Marcus Jackson, who's the kid from Word of God, he's a forward, 6'8", 230. Jayon Pitt, who is the number 4 player in the state of Arizona, power forward, 6'7", 220. Cash Polk, 3-star from Argyle, Texas, power forward, 6'8", 195. Frederick Leo Curtis from Massachusetts, he's a 7-footer. That's a lot of size. And you look at the transfers they have, Marcus Adams Jr. transferring in from, not Pepperdine, where did he come from? Cal State Northridge is 6'8", 200. And they got a guy on Monday, Alan Mukaba, I believe is how you say it, from Oakland. He's a small forward at 6'6", 247. So there's 2 guards on this team right now. They need to get some more guards. And the guys that I highlighted play guard. Tyon Grant and Frankie Collins and Tru Washington and RJ Lewis Jr. Those are all guys that play guard. And they would find immediate starting spots for this team. Immediate, because there's no competition. And some of those guys are just really good basketball players. So that's number 1, is I think that you are going to see Bobby Hurley really pursue guards, especially because they claim ASU is guard U. Well, there's no guards on this team right now, so we got to change that. Prediction number 2. This team is going to make a late push for the top remaining recruit in 2025 who is realistic for ASU to get, and that is Trent McLean. Now, McLean was previously committed to West Virginia, decommitted. He is doing his work right now. I haven't seen anywhere that he's favored to land one place or another. What I do know is he holds an offer from Arizona State, and until I see something that says, hey, this is his top 3, this is his top 5, ASU's in the hunt for him. So if that's the case, then yeah, they got to make a heavy push for him. Now, he's a forward, so it doesn't solve your guard problem, but it's another 4-star kid. It's a top 200 recruit. It's a top 40 power forward. He's close by. He's from California. This is a really good opportunity for you to do your absolute best to rebuild this roster. Bring in 3 4-star recruits out of high school. Right now you have 2 4-star transfers. They're not done adding transfers. You had Frankie Collins. That's a 4-star transfer. Like, there's still time to rebuild this team with quality basketball players. And I think that they are going to make a really big push for Trent McLean to try and round this recruiting class up. And my final prediction is do not expect anything for the 2026 cycle. We are obviously focusing on 2025. But I don't think we're going to hear diddly squat about next year. Like, there's the uncertainty with Bobby Hurley, whether he's going to be here beyond this upcoming season, but there's also just so much pressure on getting things done now that I don't know if they're even going to think about 2026 until the end of the year. Certainly for the next month, I don't think we're going to hear anything about 2026. Let me present to you my best case roster that is still a little realistic. Obviously, some of it is shoot for the moon because it's a best case. But again, I didn't just put everyone on here. Like, RJ Lewis Jr. is not on here. Jayden Quaintance isn't on here, as much as that pains me. Sorry about smacking the mic. Here's what I put together. My starting 5 would be 3 guards, 2 forwards, so you're getting back to small ball. But again, there's just not really this proven center on this team right now. Starting 5, Frankie Collins, Mo Odom, Tyon Grant Foster. 2 forwards are Marcus Adams Jr. and Marcus Jackson. So you are going to have 4 transfers that are starting, which that's not new to Arizona State. And then you're going to have your top recruit in your freshman class that is starting. That's pretty much what happened last year. So, no problem with that. My 6th man is either Tru Washington or Trevor Best. You can pick between those two. And then the keys to my bench are Rayvon Griffith, Alan David Mukuba, Jayon Pitt, Cash Polk, Frederick Leo Curtis, and Duke Brennan. So, to run through that for you. So, Trevor Best, as a 6th man, he is the lone returner from last year's team. Frankie Collins, Mo Odom, Tyon Grant Foster, Tru Washington, Rayvon Griffith. Those are all transfers. That is 5 transfer guards. You can pick whatever order you want them to start. I went with Frankie Collins, Mo Odom, and Tyon Grant Foster. Tru Washington could easily start and then move one of those guys into that 6-man role. Marcus Adams Jr. and Alan David Mukuba are transfers for the forward position. Marcus Jackson, Jayon Pitt, and Cash Polk are incoming freshmen. And then finally at center, Frederick Lewis Curtis is a freshman. Duke Brennan is a transfer. That is a grand total of 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Now, the max amount of scholarships you can have is 15. 13 used to be the limit, so I said 13, and I said we'll roll with that. So, just some quick notes about my best case scenario as we start to wind this down. Like I said, you're going to play a lot of small ball, and I'm not a fan of small ball. I love big men, and I like guys that can eat off the glass. Rebounding is a really big deal for me, and that's been ASU's biggest weakness and Achilles heel for this basketball team for several years. In fact, last year when we had Jayden Quaintance and Sean Phillips Jr. on the court at the same time, I think that's the happiest I've been watching ASU basketball. They were still losing games, but I was happy to see guys who were willing to post up and play underneath, especially when Quaintance really started to tap into his potential and Sean Phillips had his breakout. I was having a good time. But you're kind of going to have to pivot to that spot right now because I don't think Duke Brennan is a starter for the team that I have assembled. Yeah, he's the only center on this team with experience, and the other center is Frederick Leo Curtis. But I don't think that guarantees him a starting spot. Sean Phillips Jr. was the lone center for this team in the 23-24 season. He did not start very much because ASU was starting 4 guards. You're not guaranteed it. A lot of small ball. Now, I do like that I look at this starting lineup and I see guys that score. I see Mo Odom, Tyon Grant Foster as my top scorers. I know Marcus Adams Jr. was a highly productive guy. Marcus Jackson being the freshman, TBD, obviously very talented. Frankie Collins, we have seen ups and downs from him, but the last we saw him at ASU, he was pretty good producer. So I like that even with small ball, I've got guys that I trust to score. The forwards I have are physical guys because you may not have a true 7-footer on this team because Duke Brennan is 6'10", and Frederick Leo Curtis is not a 7-footer, or I think he's right at 7 feet. Yeah, that sounds right. I don't remember. I literally had it in front of me and I closed it. So you don't have this definitive Sean Phillips guy, but you do have bigger physical forwards like Marcus Jackson especially, who was listed at center on some places as he was coming out as a recruit, who will play physical. So that's fine. And I mean, you've also got guards that aren't afraid to play off the rim. You would have Frankie Collins, and you would have who was the other one we talked about? It was RJ Lewis Jr., but he's not on this team. But Frankie is a guy who eats rebounds, and I love that. So maybe the rebounding can get a little bit better. I love my 6-man, especially knowing that it could be Trevor Best or it could be Tru Washington, and know that there's that high upside potential for a guy to come off the court and be a sharpshooter for me. Love that. And on my final note, this is a quality depth roster. There's just not elite talent here. There could be, like Jayon Pitt and Marcus Jackson, your top 2 highest rated recruits, 4 stars in this class. Yeah, they could be great and they could break out. Like, there's a reason that they're highly recruited, but you can't bank on it and guarantee it. Whereas you looked at Jayden Quaintance and Joson Santa and you were like, yeah, if they bust, that would surprise me. So we'll see what ends up happening. But if that was my roster, at least I could go into the season of like, they should be watchable, right? And right now, that's probably the bare minimum that you're asking, is for ASU to give you a team that's watchable on the court for next year. I think that this roster that I have assembled is watchable. It's small ball, you got scorers, you've got kids that are still going to play aggressive off the glass. Figure it out from there. Who is your dream target right now in the transfer portal? Whether that's Jayden Quaintance, whether that's RJ Lewis Jr., or someone else, who you think is the most realistic guy, and what is your starting five? Let me know in the comments. You can hit me up on Twitter at RichieBrads36 or the podcast at LO_Sun Devils. Wherever you're getting your shows, hit like, hit subscribe, and turn on notifications. You'll get an update whenever we post new content. I appreciate each and every single one of you for tuning in to make the show your first listen of the day, and a shout out to my everydayers who are here every day. Tons more content coming up for you here on Locked On Sun Devils as we continue to keep you posted on everything that's going on with Sun Devils basketball, as it is going down like the Titanic. I'll be sure to keep you up to date on football as well, especially with lots of recruiting around the corner. Now has never been a better time to hit that subscribe button. I'll catch you guys next time. Till then, you keep it locked right here on Locked On Sun Devils.